I'd come just for that.
Amen.
I'm serious. I was chatting, emailing really, with a couple of colleagues. And I said that my style of preaching is basically plain vanilla and chocolate. And my ministry is essentially a teaching ministry, trying to bring the wisdom of the past and of all the different wisdom traditions into the realness of our days now. Unitarian Universalism can be complex and hard to understand. And in a culture where the God word is so dominant, patriarchal, it is hard for a lot of people to understand how theists and liberal Christians and liberal Jews, and these days increasingly a number of Buddhists and some number of atheists, and a whole lot of people with different labels, including the Wiccans. How do they get together? What is holy for them? Well, what I preached in previous occasions and what I summarize very briefly right now is my sense, and perhaps yours, that opening ourselves to the wonders of existence, of life in our consciousness, evokes within us a gratefulness. And when we really center and open ourselves to it, that gratefulness becomes a sense of reverence, a recognition of the holiness within the natural world, within the human community near and far, and within our own hearts and minds. I'm not going to use all the time. Our faith. Remember in a conversation with you, Mary Beth, and I don't know what you were asking me. I had done something that struck you, and you asked me why I did it. And my response, I remember, I did it because it is my faith. Because these principles and the sources from which they draw are, when they're expressed in human living, holy. You know, in this Jewish temple next to us, the focus of the altar is the book of the Pentateuch, including the Ten Commandments. Jews, you're going to hear about a little more about this in 2 weeks, don't worship literally the book, but they worship the understanding in the universe, which may be called God, which gives that book to us. Our first principle is the inherent worth and dignity of all persons. It's a good time to say amen, folks.
Amen.
But that is also our Achilles heel. have, through the 19th and 20th centuries, sometimes made a god an idol out of individualism. God bless Emerson. But perhaps focusing so deeply upon that, it has obscured our vision that peoples blossom in beloved community. We are a faith with deep, deep roots. The Universalists and the Unitarians go back formally 2 centuries, informally centuries before that, and their gift of recognizing we can reason things for ourselves, taking the Protestant Reformation to its fullest extent, and their understanding that there is no judgmental God, that there is a kernel of love within each of us, that in a sense there is universal salvation for each of us. Study that history. The tapes, the CDs are excellent. A little light on universalism, and they leave out the empowerment controversy, but they're generally very good. But also recognize that when those two magnificent traditions merged in 1961, a new faith was given birth. And we really are at this stage sort of an adolescent faith, struggling to really see what our role is in this world. Perhaps it's because I don't want to die without some sense of progress and hope. But I think I'm a good enough judge of history and culture to say that the dilemma and controversy and hurt of the last 3 or 4 months, when a white man was again hired to the exclusion of a black woman, and the women, mostly religious educators by the way, raised hell. And it forced us to recognize that no one of us is a white supremacist. But the culture, the hidden understandings, the implicit assumptions that we all carry with this amount to a system that honors whiteness and white people and ignores and sometimes puts down people of any color other than Eurocentric white. That was a big swallow for our congregations at a time when the economy still isn't thriving, when we're really struggling in many congregations, not just here. That was a big swallow. But those religious educators said, we need to have teachings on the white supremacy that we swim in. And the final number is over 700 of our congregations held a worship service or a full-blown workshop on white supremacy. And in spite of the fact that that phrase is a big swallow for some people, we tackled it. And it was a huge part of the General Assembly that has just concluded yesterday. And the fact that it's rooted in, or at least comes from, our religious educators, and the fact that 700 congregations said, yeah, it's about time we looked at that, gives me hope that we are alive and vibrant and maturing and growing. And I believe with every fiber of my being that in these moments we are maturing as a faith. In the process of the controversy, the president of the UUA resigned, the executive vice president resigned, and a couple of others, leaving a vacuum of leadership 3 months before the General Assembly. The board, shaken pretty deeply by all this, had the wisdom of appointing 3 people as interim co-presidents. Bill Sinford, African-American, one of our previous presidents. Leon Spencer, one of the grand old men of our tradition. And Sophia Betancourt, a religious educator who's been on the UUA board. So Sophia was our first woman president. And then at General Assembly, not 24 hours ago, when the voting was completed, a woman was voted to a 4-year term. And forgive me, I didn't jot her name down. So we have long overdue recognition and leadership of women. I can't help but think that this is a time of incredible transformation, inspiration, and hope. That it is a good time to be a Unitarian Universalist. I have enough ego that I want to be remembered. The question is for what? What I hope is, oh great, my hope is that I'll be remembered for bringing a Unitarian Universalist faith in a collaborative ministry. Started before I arrived and vibrant in working with me, that we've brought a Unitarian Universalist faith to this community. Everybody who has signed the book, hold your hand up as I come around. Remember me, but remember most of all our faith. Wear it often, with a quiet pride, and maneuver to invite questions about it so you get to tell people about it. Keep your hands up over here if I haven't gotten to you. I don't know what I would have done to turn it had been very much bigger. Carry this with love, with my love, with the love of this congregation, and the love of our UU faith. And there's going to be ample opportunity to invite new members very shortly. And there are some people who aren't here. So who's ever in charge of doing that stuff, here are enough pins to get you through the rest of the year. It would thrill me. We've got some for Barbara. I want to sure to say Barbara and Jillian. Is there anybody else in there besides Barbara and Jillian? Members?
Maria.
Oh, Maria. Well, I think she left.
Yeah.
I've been known to nudge you now and again. I would love it if all of those pins were given to members by the end of the year. And it's entirely possible. There are people in this community who need us. And most especially, there are children who need our Sunday school. If you have no other sense of mission and focus, it would be to reach out to families and tell them we've got a really good thing for their kids, where the values and love they receive here will serve them well throughout their life. I'd also like to see it pick some cause or focus besides looking in on yourself, looking outward to the community, so that when you say I'm a skook you, I'm a skook who does. We have a hell of a Sunday school, and the soup kitchen has been a great and wonderful place. We can do even more. I want to give her 2 or 3 minutes. I don't want to cheat Jillian too bad. I love you all. Individually and collectively. We have been working under a structural limit that I understand pretty well at this point, and some of you do. I think it's important that you all do. Developing a congregation takes lots and lots and lots of face time.